Hey guys, what's going on? It's me, Jay. I wanted to get on here to remember that yesterday, December 7th, 2001, was the 80th anniversary of December 7th, 1941, which is quotable. It's the famous speech by President Roosevelt at the time, right after the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor, which was the worst attack in our country's history up until that time. To put it in perspective, it was basically the 9/11 event of the 19 for the generation of the 1930s and 40s. For us, it was the event that kicked off World War II. World War II had been going on already since 1939 when Hitler invaded Poland, but we hadn't really been involved directly. Um, we had been imposing up until that point sanctions on the emperor on the emperor of Japan because Japan was having imperialistic designs towards countries in the Pacific Asia region. So we were trying to, I guess, blockade them or whatever the case may be. And emperor at the time, Emperor Hirohito, he didn't like that, and he on the morning of December 7th, 1941, attacked the United States. And of course, being then the President Roosevelt in his famous speech, December 7th, 1941, a day which will live in infamy. The United States was deliberately attacked by the Empire of Japan. And we had declared the war with Japan. And because of that, Hitler and Mussolini, Italy's leader, were allies of the Japanese government. So we went to war with them. And as I mentioned in the Bob Dole video that I did 2 days ago, World War II is the war that virtually everybody agreed on. One, because of how genocidal Hitler was with the Jewish people, gypsies, the disabled, and other minorities in Europe. And two, because of how crazy and um, maniacal the Japanese government was to people in the Asia Pacific region, especially the Chinese in the region of Nanking. Look up the Nanking Death March. They were the Japanese. It's funny because they were spreading this propaganda at the time that um, if if they defeat America and the Europeans, they will rid Asia of the white menace. They'll rid Asia of the white man, and they will rid Asia of white European imperialism. And that's true, but they only then replaced it, replaced white European imperialism with their version of imperialism. So we're not going to let the Americans and the Europeans take you over, but we, the Japanese, are going to take you over. So we're going to free India from the thrones of the British, but we're going to take you over. We're going to free Hawaii from the thrones of the Americans, but we're going to take you over. We're going to free Indonesia from the Dutch, but we're going to take you over. That was the hypocrisy on the side of the Japanese government. And the ones that they really did did a brutal number on were the Chinese people. I would venture to say that even though our history books don't talk about it, we talk mostly about when it comes to the atrocities committed in World War II. We talk about Hitler and the Jews or the Gypsies, sometimes the Romani, um, the Romani people, but we don't discuss um, what the Japanese did to the Chinese people in Nanking, which should be discussed. was one of the reasons why Mao Zedong, later Chinese communist leader, was able to gain such support from his people because the Japanese had did such a number on the Chinese during that time, and the Koreans too. They even occupied Korea. To this day, Koreans Koreans that live in Japan are still looked at as second class citizens. Well, we know how the story ends. The United States wins the war in 1945. President Truman drops two atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, making the United States um, the only country in the world to ever use atomic weaponry. And we also know how Japanese American citizens were treated, how Japanese American citizens, particularly on the west coast of the United States, were interned. So a lot of bad things happened on both ends. It was a brutal war, and it really ended the militaristic tradition, the militaristic culture of the samurai in Japan, because during the Middle Ages in Japan, just like during the Middle Ages in Europe, Japan was dependent heavily on samurai culture. Like it was a heavily samurai-based society. Then after the Meiji Restoration in the in the late 1800s, they modernized Japan because they saw the writing on the wall. They saw that the Europeans were coming and the Europeans were going to colonize Japan. So they said, we don't want to be colonized, so we'll be the colonizer. And the ethos of the samurais, the beliefs of the samurais that were only specifically prior to that reserved for the samurai culture, became the national culture of all the Japanese government during the imperialistic age of Japan. So, the end of World War II, the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which Pearl Harbor led to the end, really, of seppuku, of Japanese warrior culture. It was the Japanese samurai culture that kept Japan from being invaded by the Mongols. China was overtaken by the Mongols. Japan wasn't because of the samurai culture and because of typhoons. But you know, um, that's the basic gist of it. The end of World War II changed Japan forever, probably for the best because um, when the Americans came in and they set up a new military government, it then allowed Japan. Um, they set up a new military government in which Japan was under the protection of the United States. It allowed Japan to flourish technologically and become one of the technological giants that it is today. So everything happens for a reason, but rest in peace to those who lost those military men, servicemen, and servicewomen who lost their lives on December 7th, 1941. Many of them are passed away as well. The movie by Michael Bay that came out, I think it was in the 2000s. Um, Not really that good. He could have did a better depiction of it. I think he tried to make it like Titanic, a historical based movie, yet entertaining at the same time. And I just wasn't really feeling it, but it did um, open a lot of people's eyes to what really went on in Japan. and how Japan had undergone that shift in society. But it's funny because, okay, now we're Star Wars fans, right, on this channel. So think of it this way: butterfly effect. Pearl Harbor doesn't happen. Japan and the United States never go to war. America never drops bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Okay? Japan never reforms its economy and becomes less militaristic after World War II. Then Akira Kurosawa in the 50s and 60s never starts making samurai films. If he never does any samurai film, particularly The Hidden Fortress, we don't have the plot to the first Star Wars, which Hidden Fortress is based on. We don't even have a name for the fighting force of good guys in Star Wars, which is based on the Jedi, which is based on the Japanese word Jidegeki. Also, in Long Beach, Griffey brought this up. We don't we don't have anime, so every good thing, every every rainstorm has a silver lining at the end of it. But again, rest in peace to the people who lost their lives in Pearl Harbor. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. Love you guys. Peace.